props add so much realism to first-person preaching. Let's listen as Dick Stenbakken shares some simple yet very helpful and meaningful ideas about props.
Well, a lot of times people get concerned about how can I get the things that we've seen. They look like they're rather formidable. I brought a few things along just to look at. This is basically a belt I bought this at a thrift shop for $1, and it's pretty small for a belt, but I use it in some characters as part of a headdress because it dresses it up and it looks kind of fancy, but it's $1. It's no big deal. Other headdress items, this is the one I used for Peter, and it's just a piece of rope with a scrap of cloth wrapped around it, and then it becomes a headband. So it's not expensive, it's not fancy. For Pilate, as an example, the crown that he wore, this is, I forget where I got it, just a hobby shop kind of thing, florist. These are metallic colored leaves, and I got 2 sprigs of it and wired them together with coat or pipe cleaner and bent them around and made a crown. So it doesn't have to be elaborate. It's just a matter of observing some things from history and being creative. Example, another thing with John, the ink pot. That ink pot is, it's a little, well, it used to have maple syrup in it. And I cut the screw top off of it, a little spray paint, and then the ink blotches on it are done with just a regular black marker. I was out at a lake one day and found some goose feathers from the geese that have been fooling around out there, and some of the white feathers I bought at a hobby shop, and put that with something on the table. The whole idea is to help give a setting so that it's realistic. Now these things are easy. Some of the other things, like the scrolls that I use, actually what this is freezer paper, and then I take some shoe polish and put that on the freezer paper, and I write notes and other things that I read on the other side of the freezer paper. Regular paper tends to soak through. The freezer paper is got a plastic on the inside. You use a felt tip pen and you can write on it, and when you hold it up it looks pretty much like leather. I mean, it costs pennies to do, and it looks, you know, pretty authentic. I really strive for and recommend that people go as much as they can for authenticity. The high priest's headdress that Caiaphas wore. This brass is just something that I got at a hobby shop, drilled a hole in it, bent it around, cut it, shaped it. The lettering itself is sign makers use this. It's a tape. I put it on there and then cut out and stripped it off, and it's just taped on there. The hat itself is a butter tub and some cardboard with cloth wrapped around it. And again, I think it looks pretty good, but until you see the inside of it, you don't realize what it is. So mainly it's creativity. And other props, if you want to get a little more real, for instance, like this that I use for Pilate and some other characters. This is actually a real steel blade, but I got this from a place on the internet for about $13. And it's a fairly good reproduction. It's not as good as the one I have on the Roman soldier, but if you want realism for 12 or $13, you can't beat that. Now, if you want to go a little more, and of course this one is a bit more, I have it in my pocket, so I have to dig it out here. As I was, in fact, working with the coin with Pilate, that's going to be hard to see. I'll just hold it up here. It's very small. This is actually a lepta or lepton that was minted in 3031 AD. This coin was minted by Pontius Pilate in the same year that Jesus died. And it does have on it the walking staff depiction of the Roman dream interpreter, the augur. So when I found this and realized what it was, it just opened up new vistas of what the scripture talk about when he had this note from his wife. And actually, he thought so much of this kind of thing that he put it on his coin rather than his own face. So some of these insights into history make things very real. And when I'm doing a first person of any kind, I strive to have enough really deep historical material that somebody that's a PhD is going to say, wow, I didn't know that. And the 5-year-old who could care less about what's on the Roman lepta is just caught up in the story itself and the reality that the story teaches. So I really, really strive for reality. And some of it doesn't have to be expensive. This one was not particularly cheap, but the learnings that I get out of this for myself personally are just so amazing. I can't believe it. So it's all part of making the scripture real, making the people real, and making the story that's there real so people can respond to it in real time. The net that I use for Peter, it's just, I bought this, I think, at a party store, if you're going to have a motif of a seaside thing, $4 or $5. And so I unroll it and open it up and use it for Peter. Some of these things, if you can do them, really add, again, the realism to the character, which gives depth to the character and then deeper meaning to the scripture and the story that that character unfolds. It doesn't have to be expensive. The costuming, I basically make my own costumes. The cloth and the materials aren't expensive, and they're very simple to do. Now, my wife helps me with some of the sewing, but I do most of the sewing myself. And when I get stuck, I say, "Artist, help me," and she does. But I know what it is that I want to do, and I just enjoy doing it. So, and I really think that other people with a little creativity and a little imagination and some study, they can do it too. It's not difficult. And I'll tell you, when you get started, it's kind of like potato chips. You just don't want to quit. It just pulls you in more and more. So that's some of the story behind some of the things that make the characters come to life.
The possibilities of first-person preaching are so exciting and simple, really. You know, I've sure been blessed personally through first-person preaching. It's fun. And I like best of all being non-existent as I hide behind the character that I'm portraying. There's one last segment I think will really pump you up. Some awe-inspiring glimpses of the endless possibilities of first-person preaching.